Hi, I'm Meredith Bell with Performance Support Systems, and I'm very excited today to have as a guest to speak with Amy Pearl. And I'm excited about talking with her around her book, The Collaboration Breakthrough. Amy is I love your title, Chief Optimizer of Work Ignited, and I love the name of your company too. Her company focuses on providing strategic solutions and tools that help people ignite. They ignite their passions, ignite their teams, and ignite the entire workplace. So welcome, Amy. I'm just so excited to have you with me today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And so let's get started right away. And the first thing I want to do is kind of have you set the context and the stage by explaining a little bit about the kind of work that you do with organizations. Who is it you work with? What sort of services that you provide? So we get an understanding of the material that you've created in this book.
Well, for over 20 years, I've worked with leaders in almost every industry and at every level. So from the CEO at a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar grocery chain to executives at Fortune 50 companies to frontline leaders at not-for-profit organizations. I've done a lot of work with them and their teams, and it seems to keep coming down to the same kinds of things. People are struggling with how to create a workplace that people really love, that people get excited about. So in working with them, over the years, I developed a number of different tools, really simple approaches to solving some of their most difficult workplace challenges. And so writing the Collaboration Breakthrough, it was my effort to compile all those tools so other people could benefit from them.
That's great. And, I was thinking there are so many books out around leadership and team. So I was wondering what was missing from those other books that you felt the need to bring this particular book to the world?
Well, like you, I have been reading books like this for probably 30 years.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I kept seeing over and over through the years was that a lot of the books, especially those written in like the 80s and 90s, really focused on employee engagement. And they were wonderful because it brought the quality of the workplace really into focus for a lot of organizations. But something that has frustrated me through all this time is back in the 80s, when some of those original books were written, the average employee engagement level was at 30%. And if you look at some of the studies that are done now, only about 32% of the workforce is actually engaged.
Not much difference.
No. And if you were the head of sales for an organization and in 30 years your sales only increased by 2%, you probably would have lost your job a long time ago. So I said, something is wrong with this model. It's based on, to me, really hierarchical, old-fashioned organizational development models that really put the responsibility for employee engagement either in the hands of the HR department or the senior management team. Engagement, it's treated more like a noun rather than a verb, where you can't just expect to achieve it. You have to really engage people in building it. So that was our approach with the Collaboration Breakthrough. It's not written just for a CEO or for a leader. It's written for anyone in the organization who wants to make a difference and who wants to achieve their goals. And it gives them the tools that are really simple and can be used at any level to create a workplace that they really love.
Yes, I got that through the book, the idea that anyone really could benefit from it. One of the things I enjoyed is the way it's written as a fable in the first person with a lot of diverse characters. Talk a little bit about why you decided to take that approach rather than a straightforward, nonfiction.
Well, I didn't really know much about writing books, so I spoke with a lot of people through the whole process. And most of them told me that people write books for one of two reasons, either to educate or to entertain. And I said, why can't you do both? So I wanted to create a book that was both entertaining and educational. And I find that people, when they're enjoying something, they retain the information and they learn more from it. Plus, I really wanted to tell the stories of the people in the book. And all of those people are real. I changed the names to protect the innocent, but they're all real people. And people who I found over my time in working with them were really misunderstood. They were really well-intentioned, and in many cases, they weren't even aware of how they were coming across to other people. But of course, our real hero is Mike Lerner. He's the star of our story, who uses all of these different tools in what I think is a pretty realistic way. It's not like pie in the sky, this wouldn't work for everyone kind of thing, but in a really real sort of scenario, because the scenarios are real, and he achieves his goals by influencing other people to see his point of view.
Yeah, I liked the fact that the characters were relatable. You can see yourself or people in each one of those. So I think that really adds a lot of credibility, to the whole book. And I did like the evolution as he evolved, as he learned
Yes.
and gained new insights. And that leads me to one of the most important aspects of the book. And the takeaway for me was about your model for achieving this collaboration breakthrough.
Mhm.
And you use the 5 C's,
Mhm.
and which are easy to remember, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about what those are and why they're important.
Well, we divided all of our different breakthrough tools into the 5 C's just to organize them a little bit better. But the first is confidence. And that really provides a lot of ideas for building confidence and trust among two people, among a team, across an entire organization. Because if you don't have that confidence and trust in one another, it's hard to do any of the other things. So it starts there. The second is clarity. How do I build clarity of purpose, clarity of goals, clarity of responsibilities, so that everyone is on the same page? And of course, you can't just dictate those expectations to people. So our third C is, how do you build commitment? And we have 5 killer questions in the book that really anyone can use to build commitment around really big initiatives or even small topics. So we have courage, and we have clarity, and we have commitment. And then our fourth C, we debated about it for a long time, because often when you're working with organizations and you ask people, what's the number one thing that you'd like to improve to enhance the quality of your workplace, communication comes up.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
yeah.
Always.
Always, right? But as you talk to people, they don't really want more posters or more town hall meetings. What they're looking for is, how do I have a better conversation with the person next to me?
Mhm.
Or how do I have better conversations with the other department down the hall? Conversations to help people solve their own problems. Conversations to build agreement around what we're going to be doing together. Even conversations to have kind of that straight talk with someone when they're not doing something that you need them to do. So our fourth C is conversations, and the fifth is courage. And that's where it gives each reader a chance to look in the mirror and say, am I doing all I can do to be collaborative? And do I have the courage to actually take that first step to make the difference that I want to make in my workplace?
That's so great. So when you work with these companies and you're, trying to build around these 5 C's, do you typically start with the top leadership and get their buy-in and commitment to implement those, or how do you structure a typical engagement?
Well, my goal is to really create collaborative workplaces across the continent. So I will attack it from whatever angle I can attack it.
Mm.
So sometimes it is a senior leadership team that's saying, sometimes they're not saying we want to be a collaborative workplace. What they're saying is, we don't seem to have the levels of accountability in the organization that we need, or we have major change initiatives that we're not quite sure if the organization is ready to embrace. Or, for some reason, they just feel like they're not achieving all they can achieve. And when they begin to explore the 4 workplaces that Mike Lerner actually travels through the fable part of the story, they begin to see that they're in one of those workplaces, and most often it isn't the collaborative workplace. And
Mhm.
then work to identify, what do they need to move from where they are today to where they're going in the future. But I often encourage them to allow other people in the organization to answer that last question. What do we need to do to move from where we are today to where we are in the future? Because if those senior managers try to solve the problems, we aren't being very collaborative. We're being very
Right.
paternalist. which is what many organizations are, and that's what they need to break down. So the grassroots efforts are really the best way, really taking this down into the very deep levels of an organization and giving each person and each team the chance to own their little area and what they need to do to make the difference.
Well, that ties in with the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which is when you think about people, picking up your book, reading it, what is your wish for what they do with the information they gleaned from that? How do you want that to translate back in the way they do their jobs?
Well, that's an excellent question, because the one thing that really drives me crazy are what I would consider buzzword programs that organizations try to launch for some period of time or to try and make the change that they want to make in their organization. My goal is for organizations to really see that this is a way of being. It isn't a program. It's not an activity. There is an employee survey and there's a training workshop and that type of thing, but it's really done with the spirit of helping people to have good dialogue around what's working in their workplace and what needs to be changed in order for people to accomplish what they need to accomplish and really love what they do every day. People have many, many choices now about where they can work. I mean, our economy is on a total upswing now, booming. People have a lot of choices, and many people in older and younger are looking for different kinds of alternative approaches to work and different ways of finding that right work-life balance. And so if we're not reaching out to each person independently and individually and saying, look, what do you need to workplace that you love, and helping them to find that here, there's a lot of risk in losing good workers.
Oh, that is so true. And I think that, just as human beings, we like to feel that we're involved. We want to be engaged with something that's meaningful to us. So that's why I think what you have built into your book really facilitates people getting to that point, because it is a simple model that's easy to understand. Some business books are just so complicated.
Yeah.
And, and too academic sounding, too theoretical. So I really loved the practical applications that, people can walk away with from your book. So just thinking about, are there any other tips that you would like to share that are in the book? Any other insights that I haven't asked you about that you want people to know about?
Well, I'd love people to know that it really is relevant for just about anyone. I had a woman who's 87 years old call me, and she said, I used to work at the workplace on page 37, and I wish I would have had your book back then.
Oh, what a hoot.
The ideas are so simple, and she could very easily see how it would have made her days a little bit brighter. But one of the things I find is sometimes as people are thinking about applying some of these ideas, they get a little nervous and they say, well, won't people be suspicious of why I'm taking this different approach, or will it look like I'm being manipulative or disingenuous? And what I actually tell them is, when you start taking a different approach that people see as being valuable, they usually respond by saying things like, oh, she's finally coming around to our way of thinking, or it's about time he did these kinds of things. And so I just want to encourage people. Everyone wants a collaborative workplace. No one has ever told me they don't want to be there. So when someone sees someone trying to make an effort to move in that direction, it's very well received, it's embraced, and it really does ignite your workplace.
That's great. That's a wonderful summary there. Well, I want to encourage everyone to pick up this book, The Collaboration Breakthrough. And Amy, tell us how they can connect with you and where the best place is for them to go to get the book.
Well, you can buy the book at Amazon.com or any of the major booksellers, or you can go to our website, which is workignited.com, and we can be reached even by phone at 716-276-8005.
Great. And are you on any of the social media platforms in particular that people might want to go and connect with you there?
Yeah, people can look for me on LinkedIn or Twitter. They can just look up Amy A. Pearl.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Amy. It's a pleasure talking to you, and I love that we're getting the word out about your book so more people can learn about it and benefit from it.
Well, I really appreciate you being such a great partner over the years with us, and you're our number one fan, and we love working with all of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, the feeling is mutual.
Thanks.
Thank